Welcome to Two Doctors Homestead. My name is Janet, and today we are making pie. This is part of a collaboration named Pies of March that is being hosted by Leanne at Mennonite Farmhouse and Tony at Kettle Kitchen. Stick around to the end of the video and I'll give you more information about this collab. So today we are making one of my favorite pies. I've been making this recipe for approximately 30 years. This is a savory pie. It is a 5th century hot water pastry pie crust. So this pie crust dates all the way back to 476 AD, which is immediately after the fall of Rome. It's also known as the medieval era or the Dark Ages. So this is a very old recipe, but it has lasted through the ages. It is a wonderful pie crust to use for savory items. It does not work for sweet, but it does work for savory very well, and it is very easy to make. So if you are a beginner pie maker, this is something that you can easily do. I have faith in you. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our filling, and this filling doesn't get any easier. So today I'm using a maple sausage. We raise our own hogs here on the homestead. So this is a sausage that we grew the animal, we harvested the animal, and we actually processed the animal ourselves. So I made a maple sausage out of it. You can easily use breakfast sausage, any kind of breakfast sausage that you want. You could use Italian sausage, bratwurst, as long as it's fresh. Just pull it out of the casings. You need approximately 1 pound for this recipe. So this is already pre-seasoned for you. It's all ready to go. There is nothing to add to it. You're just going to pull it out of the container and I'll show you what you do. So we are going to take our maple sausage, and this is again approximately 1 pound. So we are going to cut this into eighths. So we want 8 slices. So we're going to cut it in half. Cut it in half again to give ourselves 4, and then we're going to cut it down the center, and that's going to give us 8. So we're going to take this, super easy, and we're just going to roll it like we roll a meatball. That's it. We're just going to roll all 8 of these, get them ready to use for our pie crust. All right, we have our 8 meatballs ready, which is essentially just, all it is sausage that we got right out of a container. Now I've made these, again, like I said, for about 30 years. These are great for kids because you can take the sausage and you can, if you want to, you can take vegetables, and I would take veggies and I would make those veggies mashed as much as I possibly could, just super diced, and I would roll them in to the meat, and that was my way of hiding veggies in my kids' food because they couldn't tell it was there. Okay, so we have our 8 balls, and we're gonna move this aside, and we are gonna work on our pie crust. I'll wash my hands real quick. All right, we've got clean hands now, so we are going to work on our pie crust. And hot water pie crust is very different than a sweet pie crust. Typically, your crust for sweet pies, you cut in cold butter. You need to make sure that it's chilled before you can use it, and that is the complete opposite for hot water pie crust. So in this bowl, I have 2.5 cups of just all-purpose flour. To that, I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt. Now, if you are low sodium, you don't have to do it, but I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of salt. That is just for flavor. We're going to mix that around. Make a little bit of a well. Doesn't need to be too deep. And this is how easy it is. In this saucepan, we have 1/2 cup of water and 1/2 cup of lard. So it's 1/2 cup of lard, 1/2 cup of water. We put it on the stove on medium heat. We melted it down to a liquid. Now, it's still warm. We are going to pour the liquid into our pie crust. It's hot. So it goes into our flour mixture, and we are just going to mix it around until it incorporates. Which again, this is very different than what you would see in a normal pie crust. It's the complete opposite, but it's so easy. Now back in the medieval times, dark ages, that's what they used was lard, because that's what they had off their animals. And they also used the meat that they took and they minced up, and this was actually their way of preserving meat back then, by encasing it in this hot water pie crust pastry, because then they could travel around with the meat and it was preserved. There was not any refrigeration, so they didn't have that cold butter to be cutting into the wheat. That came much later when we figured out refrigeration. So okay, it just got incorporated in, that's it. We're gonna dump this out on the counter. We don't need any bench flour because there's a considerable amount of lard in this recipe. So we're gonna grab everything that's in here. It's super easy to work with because it has a lot of fat in it. And we are going to knead this like you would knead a bread dough. I know, you're supposed to be super gentle with pie crust, but not this one. So we're going to knead this for about 2 to 3 minutes until we get a nice smooth consistency. What we're looking for in a hot water pie crust is we want to keep the crust warm, because that is when it's malleable and that's when you can use it to make your pies. And we also want to knead it a little bit so we can activate the gluten in it, because the gluten is going to give us our structure. Because these pies were hand raised. They didn't have, pie tins that they put them in. These were hand raised pies. They could have been a huge pie that they hand raised and put on the table and decorated, or it could be little individual pies. And today, as you see, since we made 8 little meatballs, we are making the traditional little hand pies. We're going to make 8 of them, because that's how people traveled during that time. That's how they had their food. It was usually individuals that had more money that would have the big large pie that they would put on the table when there were people there as a gathering. Okay, so this is pretty much come together. It's nice and smooth. It's super sticky, not sticky, but it's smooth because it's oily. So what we're gonna do is we are going to make this into 8, cut this into 8 now, because we're going to need it for the outside of our pie. So we're going to cut this in half to 2, again to 4, down the middle to give us 8. Super easy peasy. The trick with this is you need to keep it warm, because as hot water pie crust starts to cool off, it starts to set. And as it sets into its shape. And that's why you can hand raise these pies just by hand. It doesn't need a mold to hold its shape when cooking, because it dries to hold its shape. So it really is perfect, because you could put meat in it. You could also pour fluid into it as well, and it's not going to leak out. So what we're going to do to be able to keep this as warm as we possibly can is I'm going to put a towel over it, and we're going to work fast. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we made our circle, we made our ball. Super easy. We are going to flatten this ball out by hand, because they were hand raised pies. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. Back in the day, they would also hand raise them on dowels, but at least that's what the historians say. I have a hard time believing that, because hand raising on a dowel actually takes a little bit of practice. And I feel like people just would do things as easy as they could then. So I've made a circle. This is my easy way of doing it. I made a circle. I have my ball. I'm going to put it in the center. I'm going to pick this up, almost like a dumpling, and we're just going to fold it onto itself. It's really malleable, so you could just kind of pinch it as you go. And we pinch, and we press, and it's closed. That's it. You could roll it a little bit if you want to. Now you can keep it in a ball if you want. You can squish it down a little bit to have it a little flatter, or you can have that ball and you can take some presses. I got these on Amazon. It comes with 4 presses, different sizes, 2 large, 2 small. I'll link it in the description. And it has different stamps on them, 3 stamps each to pick from. So what we're gonna do to make these fancy, because traditionally people just walked around with it and it was very rustic, but we like to make things fancy here if we can. So we're gonna put this down. We're gonna stick this over it because the ball will just fit right in there. And we're just gonna press down. Give it a good press. Pop it out. And now we have a super fancy pie, hand pie. So, I mean, it looks like it's difficult when it comes to the table because it's super fancy and pretty. So it'll wow your guests. But I mean, that was about as easy as it gets. Now I'll show you a different way to do it if you don't want to buy a press. So you have your ball, just pinch a little bit of it off, and then we have the rest of it. We're gonna roll it. And we're gonna make it into a little circle. We're going to put our meat inside of it, and we're just gonna pull it up the sides in our palm, because you can stretch this dough. That's why they did it the hand raised, because you can literally just stretch this dough. Okay, so we're pulling it up the side. Now we have what looks like the beginning of a little hand pie, where we're going to roll our top. This is our top crust that we saved. We're gonna roll our top flat, lay it across the top, and we're just gonna pinch it to a pie now. And this is traditionally what you would have seen back in 476, as you would have seen people walking around with these in their satchels, because again, this was the way of preserving meat. Give it a little push. I mean, you could make it fancy if you want to dimple it on the sides. And that's your little pie that people would have been walking around with. Varying sizes, of course. These are a little smaller. We're making these more like an appetizer. As you can see, we've finished all of our little hand pies. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a vent hole. For this hand raised pie, we'll put a couple vent holes in the top because we want the steam to come out as it's cooking. And since these are so pretty, we're going to try to just put one vent hole in the center, right where the flour is. That's going to allow steam to come out as the meat is cooking inside, so it doesn't warp the shape of the pie crust. You may get a little seepage through this, and that's okay. You know, it's a pie. It has meat in it that's going to have juices, but the nice thing about this pie crust is it's very sturdy. So it's going to hold up As they're drying, you can see as it's cooling, they're holding their shape very well. They'll hold their shape in the oven, and then they're going to be a nice golden brown when we pull them out. Okay, our pies are out of the oven and they are golden brown and ready. You'll know that the pies are ready when the outside is golden brown and also the juice that comes out of the vent hole runs clear. So the collaboration Pies of March is again hosted by Leanne at Mennonite Farmhouse and Tony at Kettle Kitchen. There will be a live giveaway for the grand prize of a $100 e-card from Amazon. That will be held on April 3rd on Mennonite Farmhouse channel. Other prizes will be given away during that live stream. In order to be part of the giveaway for the grand prize, you will need to leave a comment on as many of the Collaborators videos as possible to give you more of a chance to win. So again, I'd like to thank Leanne and Tony for inviting us to this collaboration. So we're going to try one. Cut it open. And like that poof, I have someone who enters to try. All right, go for it. It's all yours.
It smells great.
Oh, hi. She would like some too. Yeah, your puppies want some too.
Not good.
So again, thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck to you. If you leave comments, good luck, and I hope you all get some prizes from this one. Thanks again.